coming home, I lived in London for 10 years, there'd be something new, and it would just be like, wow, why is everyone wearing that now? And you kind of get like a, because we are, explanation. This boot contains corn waste, castor beans, wood fibres, sugarcane, bamboo, recycled plastic bottles. Jürgen was the interesting one, right? Because he turned up in like blazers and jeans, and then by the time he left, he looked like he worked in Wade Smith.
Yeah, sounds it going. I'm Thomas Griffin and this is My Own Garms. It is the 8th and final episode of Series 4 today, and I'm talking with Dan Sandison. Dan's a big footy fan who has worked in and around the sport for the last couple of decades. His work has often intersected with the clothing industry, and his latest role is with eco-friendly footy boot brand Sokito. I've only met Dan once before, but I've always admired his writing, content and outlook on footy and fashion. I'm buzzing to have him as a guest on My Own Garms today. Now, if you've enjoyed this series, then there's a load of things you can do. Donate to us on the Patreon, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, tell your mates about us in real life, share a reel on Insta, whatever. I personally just want to say thanks a lot for listening and watching and all that stuff. Appreciate it. Big thank you to our series sponsor Trailblazing, couldn't have done it without you, and big thanks to my mate Daniel Milne for sorting all that stuff out, legend. Cool, let's crack on with the ep. This is My Own Garms with Dan Sandison. My Own Garms. Dan, thanks so much for coming on. How are you keeping?
Was that practice or?
That's how we're starting.
Okay.
Are you actually all right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Answer.
No, I'm good.
All right.
Mate.
You're pretty recently back off a flight, right? Last Friday was a bit of a travelling day.
Yeah, Friday. What day is it? It's Monday, so I probably should be over it, but I'm not. But we came back from America. We were travelling around with some of our players. It's the MLS playoffs. So Cincinnati, Charlotte, Portland, New York. So I'm I'm not sure what day it is.
Class, man. And was it a party trip, strictly business, or a little bit of both?
Not a lot of party, a lot of early flights, some beers at the games, but a lot of business. Yeah, no, it was getting a little bit too old for party trips.
Nice, man. When I first did a bit of work with you indirectly, it was on an episode of a brilliant podcast called Giant, and it was about the birth of MLS over there, which was still a kind of flagship episode of an amazing podcast.
Yeah.
Has kind of football changed a lot in the past since you kind of went over there last for then? Have you seen, I think that's maybe 4 or 5 years ago since, were you
No, I wasn't part of the team that worked on that, but you're right in terms of it was, especially for the European audience, it sort of told the story of MLS clearly for the first time.
Yeah.
I think everyone has a concept of USA 94, and then something happened and now we have soccer in America. And what the lads did so well on that was kind of like dive into, there was a chain reaction of events and that created MLS, and that's where we are now. And I think if I might be wrong, but Wayne Rooney was at DC United at the time, and there was kind of like a real chronology of, you know, from Beckham to Lampard to Rooney and see it through. So there is still that. There are still these players who come from abroad and trying to elevate the league, most notably in Miami at the moment with Messi, who's just gone out of the playoffs, by the way. Many commiserations, Lionel. But it's different. It is different, and it's different through growth. And I think some of the fans that were interviewed on Mundial interviewed so well on that podcast are key to that growth. New clubs are forming, old clubs are still there from the very beginning in 94, 96, and the culture is developing to a point where MLS is becoming its own thing. It's not a mimicry of UK soccer, or it's not a mimicry of European soccer anymore. It's got its own identity, for better and worse. You know, some people don't like it. I personally do. So it's come on a lot. We were at Charlotte last week for the playoffs against Orlando. There's 40,000 people in Charlotte, and you know, it's not a gigantic city, and there's a lot of people watching soccer. So it's changed and it's growing, and there's a World Cup in a year and a half. Exciting. Where we'll kind of see, that'll be the litmus test of the last 20 years of the bridge between the two World Cups.
It was probably one of my oldest recollections of football, USA 94, and the fashion of then. Oh man, mind blowing. Like, I still think if I could pick any strip, it'd be the USA change strip.
The denim one.
The denim blue one. Like,
Yeah.
it's just my mate Dave Singleton had it down the road. He must have ordered it out the back of Match. And I still remember it being like the most exotic thing.
Yeah.
What's the kit scene like of the kind of MLS clubs at the moment? Are they like typically American? Are they different aesthetically from the European kits you see?
They're definitely different aesthetically. The difference with the MLS is it's top down. It's an Adidas sponsorship across all the teams. So they're all Adi, but they are, you know, they're getting more colourful, more interesting. Charlotte's kit has like a faded blue pattern which represents the Carolinas. It's like from the mountains to the sea. Miami's is obviously bright pink, and then they have that chain strip which is like the Dolphins, which is like a green and orange like the Dolphins. They all have their own identity within that. It's a little bit templated, which I don't think European fans like because it's all one brand. But it's still technicolor. I think American sport does, you know, several things well, several things badly, and one of the things it does well is its vibrancy and its excitement and how it makes things look good.
Yeah,
I think
hypercolor on television.
Yeah, it's you know, it's visceral. It makes you kind of feel part of it. So they do the kits well. They do the kits well, and kit culture in the States is alive and well. You know what I mean? I think if you strap a culture around a sport like we have here, Americans will invest in that and they'll go out in the numbers. It's like how all Newcastle fans buy the kits. There's 18 teams that are all Newcastle United out there. They're all in their home strip for home games.
Class, man. Well, I'll have to get on matchmagazine.com and see if you've got any exotic strips for sale for when I next get called up to a five-a-side team. I mentioned in the intro about Sakito, and you said we have been out in America there, referencing Sakito.
Yeah.
The boots are gorgeous. Tell us, in fact, you brought a pair along with you today. Yeah. Maybe we can do a little show and tell for the visual audience, but they're stunning, man. So tell us a little bit more about these boots, first of all, and then a bit more about the brand.
Sure. So this is the Scouse. This is our speed boot, which launched about 6 weeks ago. It's made from biomaterials, and they're called out on the boot. So this boot contains corn waste, castor beans, wood fibres, sugarcane, bamboo, recycled plastic bottles.
Class.
Recycled plastic bottles in the laces, wood fibre in here, and kind of composite materials that are made out of all the other parts. Essentially, rather than making plastic out of petrochemicals, we use the oil from castor beans, etc. It's 42% biomaterials, which is just far ahead of any of the other the bigger brands, and we saw that of this colorway in like a couple of weeks. We've launched a double white and a double black colorway. We had some on pitch moments in the last couple of weeks with Ola Aina at Nottingham Forest scoring against West Ham, Hector Bellerin in La Liga, Ashley Westwood at Charlotte, DeAndre Yedlin at Cincinnati. So they're all investors in the brand. This is how it works. We don't do boot deals, so we don't do traditional boot deals.
Yeah.
These players invest in the brand, get equity, and then every time they wear the boot on pitch, they grow the brand. They help us design the boot, they help us pick colourways, they help us promote the boot. We're a relatively small brand. You know, there's 3 or 4 of us full-time at the moment. But it's going well.
I love it, man.
And it's exciting, and it's a real buzz to see your boot that you've helped create and market on pitch.
Class. I mean, I've seen pictures of them and thought they look cool, but seeing them in the flesh, I always like items of clothing that kind of show the working almost in the design, and being able to see all the subtly different textures and having the overt, like what it's made of written on the side is just super, super cool. And I've not played football for years, and me and Mudge picked them up before, like, oh my God, these are like, they feel like space age.
Yeah. I think that's the really important part is, yes, we do create sustainable boots, which have less impact on the planet than the more traditional brands. But like, if it doesn't stack up and the player can't wear it and it can't perform, then they're not going to be interested, because this is their work. Where at the end of the day, this is what they go to work, and if it's not performing in the same way as one of the big brands, we'll just lose them very quickly. So we've worked really hard on this one. This stacks up. It's a Premier League boot.
Nice, man.
And the players are reflecting that.
Class. So what's your role at the brand?
I'm head of marketing, so I joined pretty much 12 months ago to the day, last November, on a part-time basis, and then earlier in the summer kind of converted that to full-time. So I do all of our marketing strategy, help get these boots to market, but we're a startup, so also I'm out in America talking to players, I'm on WhatsApp to players, I'm creating events for grassroots, I'm working with agencies, we're doing all of the above, updating the website, all of the fun stuff that comes with being in a startup. We're pretty hands-on. So head of marketing sounds quite impressive, but it's a lot more like we're a team and we all do everything.
Class, mate. Does it feel like a kind of assumption of your final form? Because obviously you've been working in football industry, well, not in the football industry as such, but writing about football for a long time, and you know you've done a lot in the kind of fashion world as well. So creating football clothes, essentially, does it feel like a kind of melding of those two parts of your career?
I think so. I'm mid-30s now, and I think it's somewhere that I'm comfortable. It's product, finally. I've written about product since I was 18. Been telling people what they've done and, got wrong or got right, and now I'm like, oh, well, it's on me now. I'm the one who's getting reviewed and written about, or our product is at least. So it's nice to flip that, and it's nice to, I wrote about footballers for a long time, and now I work directly with them. They're my co-owners of the brand, and it's also nice to kind of bring all of those parts together. Like I know, hopefully, touch wood, still know what's culturally relevant in football, and I can bring that into this side of it. And we're not a big brand, so we can be slightly more agile, and we can act a little bit more editorially, a little bit more expressively. We did a Copenhagen Fashion Week shoot with Sean Kleiber at Nonby. We're working with Hector and a couple of other players on their role in a creative point of view. And those bigger brands, they're far and away, they sell a lot more boots than us, they make a lot more money than us, but they can't act as creatively as that, and hopefully that's right.
Rep your ends.
So you are from Skelmersdale up in West Lancs, right? Tell us a little bit about the clothes you saw around you growing up there and the influence they had on you as a young lad.
Okay. So you're from Lancashire, so you'll understand this, but for those who don't, Skem is a new town. So in the 60s, 70s, 80s, lots of people moved from Liverpool to the middle of West Lancashire, where it was a mining village initially, and it became a bigger town. So it was quite a culture clash. There's towns split pretty much down the middle of people who have an affinity with Wigan, Up Holland, and by proxy Manchester, like that side of things, and then all of these kind of new Scousers who've moved in who had an affinity with Liverpool. So I was obviously one of those, if you can't guess. And my mum and dad were from Liverpool. I was born in Ormskirk, which kind of, it splits into that side of things as well.
Yeah.
The truth is, you'd kind of have an affinity to Liverpool, and you'd try and maybe overcompensate, get a bit of a rep for that. Like you'd overcompensate trying to be more Liverpudlian and more Scouse, and you'd follow what my cousins and relatives and stuff would be wearing closer to Liverpool, and just try and mimic that. Skem didn't, by the time I lived there, it was maybe like 30 years old. It didn't have its own identity by then. It was very much split down there. So mine was very much sportswear, going into Liverpool, go to Wade Smith, all of that classic Liverpudlian pathway of this is how you dress, this is how you act, you go and watch Liverpool or you go and watch Everton, was kind of passed down to me and pretty much everyone I knew. You get the occasional rugby league fan or Manchester United fan or whatever who'd kind of come from the other side of the town, or like the other ideological side of the town. But for me it was just like Liverpool's the mecca for everything, and like what's next, and there'd obviously be a bit of a delay, so like we wouldn't be like as on it as kids in the city centre, which made it like more frustrating, and you'd be kind of want to figure stuff out before people and try and get stuff before people.
So it's almost like aspirationally Scouse, like, I mean, that sounds a bit detrimental, doesn't it? But
no, I think it is, and I think we can have an honest conversation about that, because like I think people get a bad rep being like, oh, like you wish you were more Scouse or whatever, but like it's sort of a fact. Like, especially when I was a kid, I don't particularly care now, but like, yeah, you wanted to be considered part of that rather than that. So like it was definitely the case, and it was aspirational because, you know, as you got closer to the city, the bigger shops were there was more to do, you were closer to both the football teams, so like your aspiration was to blend in with that crowd, rather than be like, you're from Scam.
I felt it in the same way in Chorley, I guess, because we're on the Manchester train line, so a lot of the people, like the cooler kids at school, probably tweak their accent from being Lancastrian, the parents, to being a slightly more of a Mancunian drawl.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, Liverpool is such a beacon, man. We were talking earlier on, shout out Tom, who's lent us his shed. We were reminiscing. I went to Liverpool University, and we were chatting about being in Liverpool then. It's just a magnetic city, like, and you know, a fashion beacon for anyone, like whether they like to admit it or not. The whole country kind of does what Liverpool does a couple of years after.
I'm glad you said it, because I've said that on every single other podcast I've ever done, so it's good that you said it this time. But like, and the town was split like that. You'd look towards Manchester or you look towards Liverpool, and you know, Richard Ashcroft from the Verve was from Upholland, which is like 15 minutes from my house, and if you asked anyone else in the world where he's from, they'd say Manchester. But he's not, you know. And like, we're from ostensibly the same, what would be considered a village in any other country in the world, and we couldn't feel further apart because he's, you know, his family chose that route, my family was from Liverpool, so we chose that route. And it's an interesting place, and it's kind of changed even in the 20 years since I've been there. It's probably got more of its own identity now, and you know, it's been removed from Liverpool. The transport links aren't great, etc. And the world's more globalised, right? So, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there'll be another, like, Lacoste tracksuit phenomenon. I think there'll be different tribes and things like that. Whereas when I was a kid, it was like, you get one or you don't.
Yeah.
You wear this week or you don't. And that was the last bastion of that. Whereas, like, now, globalisation and technology and stuff makes it a little bit more accessible.
So we discussed in the bonus section a particular Liverpool football top. What else might we have seen a kind of, you know, 7 or 8, 9-year-old Dan wearing at that time?
It was just football stuff, like completely down to trainers and everything. Like, played football all day, every day, whenever I could.
Where did you inherit that from? Do you think, was it mum and dad who were big footy fans, or
yeah, I think so. My dad's a Liverpudlian, mum's an Evertonian. The families are split pretty considerably down those. So I used to go to Liverpool with my dad's side of the family. I'd also go and watch Everton every now and again with my other granddad. So weekends were just football. I'd play football on a Sunday. I'd play midweek maybe for school or whatever other team I was playing, or I'd go and, you know, play indoors. So like 3 or 4 times a week, it's just kind of constant reminder of what I'm interested in, and go home to my room which had Liverpool wallpaper and all of the above. So it was tracksuits, it was trainers, and it was kind of football kits. And to your point earlier, where it was like, now you go to training and the kid will have like a City shirt on, a Napoli shirt, an England, whatever, like Spain. Like, for me, it was just, when you went, it was like Liverpool and Everton, just straight down the middle. No real difference. I had a mate growing up who's a Man United fan, and he was like a real outlier. He was the Man United fan in school.
Did he wear it proudly, or was it like kind of covert thing?
Oh, him? No, he didn't care. Yeah. Because we were sort of like outside Liverpool, you could get away with it a bit more. And obviously it helped that Man United were winning a lot then, so we didn't mind at all. But yeah, like football stuff all day, every day. A lot of Adidas was kind of my favourite brand then, and probably continues to be in some ways. But yeah, tracksuits, trainers, football shirts.
Yeah. Liverpool's obviously a massive influence, but there was one, I think I was listening to you on another podcast or reading in an interview, but you talked specifically about one early 90s Liverpool icon, Steve McManaman.
Yeah.
What was it about him and the kind of, maybe specifically the clothes that he wore, how he wore kits, that made you fall in love with him?
He was the big skinny lad with red hair. It was kind of what drew me to him, and he was obviously a phenomenal player, and I don't think he gets the credit he deserves, to be honest, but that's for another podcast maybe. But he was cool, man. He had that like cosmic Scouse swagger about him, you know. I think there was other players in the team who were like scallies, like just love footy and getting their head down and having a drink or whatever, whereas Macca seemed like a bit cooler. you know, you'd see him off the pitch with slightly more expressive style than that whole crew, which was like, you know, Ruddick and Redknapp and Fowler and Rush. And he was a local lad, which helped. You know, he to an extent looked and sounded like me, so there was that which drew me to him. And then I didn't realise at the time, I just thought he was cool, and then years later you kind of look back and he's in the face wearing 6876 and Clark's Wallabies. There's an amazing shoot which I shared on social media about once every 3 weeks, where he's been shot and he's got 6876 on. I think it's the face, but it might be GQ. I think James Brown might hit the roof of. But anyway, he's in one of the menswear magazines, just like fully rigged out, playing football with these kids.
Class, man. I didn't know this.
I'll send you them after. It's such a cool shoot. So like, I didn't know that when I was 8. I didn't care. I just thought he was great and he could cut inside. But now I'm like, oh, it kind of makes sense. Like, he was the cool footballer at the time, and he went on to do something really interesting, which was just leave and just go and do something. Or you know, you don't leave.
It wasn't a well-trodden path, was it?
No, and he went to Madrid and he went on and won the lot. And I kind of based everything around him then. Like, I started wearing Copper Mundials and blacking out the stripes and all of that, like, on pitch off stuff was McManaman. He was probably my first like style hero on pitch, and that kind of translated into how I looked off pitch.
But I think he probably was selecting one size too big in shirts, and he was probably aware of how iconic his body shape looked, with where it's all kind of like pulled back off him at speed, almost like that's my slouchy-ish socks and kind of...
and like he had long hair before players really had long hair and stuff. So I think he was, he's an expressive player, and you might not know it now when you look at him and he looks a little bit Inspector Gadget on the BT coverage, but he was one of the players in the 90s who sort of did something different, even sort of pre-Beckham,
Yeah, trailblazer, man. Can we touch on Scouse hair for a sec?
If you want, yeah.
I was teaching at a school in Bootle about 10, 12 years ago, and all the lads had long curly hair, and it was the kind of hair that when I was their age at school would have got the piss taken out of you. But these were like rum little Scouse kids who had mad long hair and were still wearing the trackies at that time. And it's only now that I've seen people from other cities, around and about me in Leeds, like Scally's having long hair again. And it's 10 years behind Liverpool. Do you think that we kind of touched on it, but this like trailblazingness, what is it about Liverpool that causes them to be so futuristic?
I think it's several things. I think at its core, it's when Liverpool sees the rest of the country do one thing, they go, what's the opposite of that?
Okay.
I think there's a rebel attitude here, which we can go into all the reasons, the kind of immigration, the anti-Britishness, whatever, but like that comes down to the core of every young person in the city. They just want to do something different. And it's not just in young men, I don't think. I think if you go out on a night in Liverpool with anyone from the rest of the country, like, wow, aren't all the girls dressed up? And it's like, yeah, that's how we do things here. Like, it's synonymous with us, and we don't really take influence from anywhere else, even as close as Manchester or Leeds or Glasgow, whatever. It's like, no, we're in our own bubble and we'll do things differently. I think, particularly with the kids you're talking about, I think that is a remnant of casual culture, in that, like, right, everyone in Manchester's doing that now, we've got to do something completely different.
Yeah.
Everyone in London's dressing like this, so we'll start wearing this. I don't think it's conscious, but I think there's just a thing within the city that young people just have to reinvent themselves and stand out from the crowd and look different. And you see it with Liverpool's and Everton's to an extent match going away. You kind of like go down to Chelsea or Spurs or whatever, and it's again like, who are these? Why have they all got long hair, and like, why are they dressed like they're going up a mountain? And it's on purpose, you know what I mean? So, and that makes it just like, you can't confront them about it, because they're like, you've got long hair, and like, no,
so will you in 3 years?
And we're right and you're wrong, and we'll see you in 3 years. When, remember with the North Face thing, like everyone wearing all black North Face. You go anywhere in London, Leeds, Manchester, all the Scallies wear all black North Face now. But at the time, I remember, people being like, why are you all dressed like that? Like, that's really weird. And I'm not part of this. I don't profess to be. But like coming home, I lived in London for 10 years, there'd be something new. And it would just be like, wow, why is everyone wearing that now? And you kind of get like because we are explanation. Yeah. So I do think, it's a bit of a cliche, but I do think in terms of streetwear, in the purest sense of the term, I do think Liverpool's ahead. And you see it in the like Monterex, the brand that's coming through here now.
That's wild.
Kids are wearing that all over the country.
Yeah.
Scouse has been wearing that for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And the twin sets, you see kids going to Ibiza from Glasgow, Leeds, Liverpool, Manchester, whatever, and it's like, that was a Scouse look 5 years ago, 110s. All of these things were like pioneered, at least here, and then adopted and changed, and there'll be like slight reflections on it. If you go up to Glasgow, it's a slightly more high-end look. If you go to Manchester, it's a bit more slouchy, whatever. But I do think Liverpool does lead the way in terms of British subculture looks, and has for a while.
Yeah, man. Good to give them the flowers. Last little question about Liverpool. You're obviously a big fan of the football team. Can you give us a quick style analysis of your two most recent managers, Jurgen Klopp and Arne Slot?
Okay. Jurgen was the interesting one, right? Because he turned up in like blazers and jeans.
Yeah. And
like full German vibe. And then by the time he left, he looked like he worked in Wade Smith.
He looked so cool, iconic.
So he ingratiated himself, and like he went full tracksuit manager. And I do remember the week he signed, there was rumours that he was going to sign, and there was a picture of him having a ciggy and a beer in town. He had a pink golf cap on, and I was like, "You'll be okay here."
Yeah.
you're all right. You're going to be all right. So it was all right, wasn't it? It was very tracksuit manager. He did those 990s with New Balance that were quite cool.
Yeah.
He did like a red 990, which I always quite liked. It was kind of like blending. It's never easy to do, to be like a collaboration with a manager. It doesn't feel right, but I think New Balance did that really well, and the guys at the Drop Date did really good work on it. So he was okay.
Do you think that the conscious decision to not acclimatise, ingratiate, like to make style changes to appeal to that fan base, got him even? I mean, you can't really get much more love than what Liverpool fans had for Jurgen Klopp, but do you think it was a kind of good PR decision for him to do that? Possibly,
yeah. He's the sort of manager who'd think about that, I think.
Yeah.
He wants to ingratiate himself to the city, so maybe he'd start representing the city a little bit better. So maybe it was just a comfort thing, I don't know.
Yeah, but he did look boss by the end of it.
Yeah.
Obviously he's got his glass teeth and his glasses got better and everything.
He did. He had a glow up. He had a big glow up.
Yeah, man. Yeah, like maybe not to the same levels as Brendan Rodgers did during his tenure, but yeah, he looked very healthy when he left.
When you're in the league, you can sort of do whatever you can wear. Like we'd been waiting for that, so he could have turned off in whatever he wanted.
And how's Arne Slot doing? Because when he turned up,
we're slightly
non-Liverpool fans, it was an absolute gift because we were like, what the fuck are they on his feet?
Yeah, I was slightly concerned about the supermarket monk straps. I don't know. It's probably a similar thing. I think he'll probably, it's been getting better, maybe.
Yeah, it has got better, man.
But like the results are masking that as well.
They really
are. You can kind of overcome it a bit. We all know what happens when a Dutch manager with no hair goes wrong. So like, as long as the results keep coming, he'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll get this out within the next month or so, but at the moment, Liverpool are riding a tide of wins.
That's not me.
You're a dapper Dan, man, a well-dressed bloke. You're looking resplendent today, actually. A mixture of textures and fabrics. I don't know if are the shoes in shot much. No. You've got the Pumas. Give us a little...
How much do that onto this one?
Yeah, mate. Very nice. Brand of the moment, Puma. But can you remember a time in your life that you look back on and think, what the fuck was I playing out there?
Every single period I look back on, I suppose. Like,
been a gradual ascent to the...
Well, no, I just think if you're totally confident in what you wear at all times, then you must be like Cary Grant. I feel like there must be moments everyone has with like, I would have done that differently. Or maybe that's just my own existential crisis. But yeah, for sure. Like the stuff I look on, months ago where I'm like, oh no, what have you done there? Like, don't do that. But yeah, there's been periods. There's been some, band t-shirt periods and things like that. And
which bands?
A fairly heavy indie period.
Okay.
Anything, everything from Green Day through the Strokes, I'd say, was probably like, it's quite studenty look.
Yeah.
Which I'm not particularly proud of, but it's a long time ago.
All part of the same trajectory though.
I think so, yeah. I think there was always like a healthy amount of sportswear, and never quite went too far down the path that made it like stand out from how I dress now. But I think everyone should have a healthy cynicism about how they dress even recently, because if not, that's the way that madness lies.
Yeah, man. I think Liverpool indie was always a little bit different to everywhere else, because like one of my favourite bands in the world is the Lars, and they made jangly indie music, but they still looked resolutely Scouse, I think. And there's a good mixture that you don't often get in other parts of the country between those two maybe disparate opposite scenes.
I think that's probably true. I think Liverpool and Manchester, that indie crowd, came from working class lads, whereas if you go slightly further afield, it gets a little bit masters in poetry guys and mum and dad's money, but like the Lars, Oasis, etc. There was always like they're into football as well. Lee Mathers is an Everton fan, and Liam and Nolan. So there's like, okay, it kind of makes sense, and it's not too far removed from that working class lad trajectory. I think Liverpool's a very musical city as well, so that kind of gives you license to be allowed to do that.
Yeah, man. I read in another interview that you had a very specific interest in cup final attire. Do you remember saying that in something?
No, I don't.
Specifically? I mean, Liverpool are the one that spring to mind in the white suits. But yeah, I'm fascinated by the development that we've seen in off-pitch footballer clothing over the past few decades. Maybe with stuff like the tunnel walks that you see over in America and stuff like that. Do you get excited to see younger players experimenting more with clothes and maybe not wearing the kind of tried and tested things that the teams of the 90s wore? Yeah,
I think excited might be strong, but yeah, I'm always interested and fascinated when a footballer feels comfortable enough to express themselves off the pitch in any way.
Yeah.
Because the pressure's so intense at the very top level that like it's the first thing that people point to, right? We've seen it with numerous players. Dom Calvert-Lewin at Everton, Pogba at United. There's probably 50 examples in the last 5 years. So I think it shows the confidence. I think when you think about a footballer, they're usually done with work by about 1 p.m. in the afternoon in the week. So like, why not? Why not let them express themselves? Why can't they have interests outside of it? I think a lot of them personally get it wrong.
Yeah.
Like, or like, dress like millionaires, and who'd blame them for dressing like millionaires? So you could probably count the well-dressed footballers on one hand. But when they get it right, it's like, okay, this guy's cool. I want to know more about him.
DCL does seem to be the one that has done it most interestingly, or most kind of provocatively over the past few years. He's boiled a bit of piss amongst Everton's fan base, maybe when he's not been nodding him in as regularly as he used to. But yeah, for someone to kind of, it's changing minds, isn't it? It's kind of changing outlooks amongst fan bases and stuff, and I admire it. Yeah,
and I think, like I said, there's a few. Hector's obviously one of them. Dom at Everton, Tom Davies, who's now at Sheffield United. I have a real interest in it. I think you can tell when someone's got a very big paycheck and gone to Flannels and hope for the best. No disrespect to Flannels, if they can end up sponsoring this. But like, there's other players who have an interest in it and want to express themselves and want to figure out about brands, and more often than not, you kind of see them moving towards like a more sustainable thing anyway. Hector doesn't really buy clothes anymore. I know Tom Davies is very into vintage and reclaimed fashion, and I think Dom Calvert-Lewin's the same. So that's even more interesting, because it's sort of like it's part of their personality and part of their who they are now.
Yeah. Has Bellerin got his own brand going on?
He has, yeah, Gospel Studio, which is similar to what I was just saying. It's kind of super sustainable. Small studio in Barcelona. Very small runs of pieces, reclaimed fabrics, recycled fabrics, biomaterials. Which is like it's the end goal of all of these things, right? If you've got all of the money in the world from playing football, but this is another passion of yours, then funnel it into that.
So you mentioned being down in London there. What age were you when you moved down that way?
How old was I? I was maybe like 10, 15, maybe like 20, something like that, 20, 21, 22.
Pretty young then. I mean, how did going down there change your relationship with clothes? Were you seeing, did you feel like you had to change it all to fit in? Because I know that age is like, you still kind of identity forming to an extent, or professionally, did you have to do anything differently to get by down there, or were you just resolutely northern?
I was fairly resolute, but I think people just, I worked in like an agency in the West End, like the west of London, and there was, it's like, there was no northerners there. There was, of course there was, but like, it was a bit of a novelty act, you know what I mean?
Right,
like I'd come and like wear tracksuit bottoms and like trainers to work and
lean into it
and be like, I'm going, like, I've got to go early because Liverpool have got Arsenal, so I'm going to go here. And it sort of didn't compute with a lot of people, but like I didn't ever really mind. Everyone was super nice about it, and London's one of the best cities in the world. I feel like there's, it's brilliant, and you can do anything and you can be anything, and you can go and recreate your look in an afternoon, or you can do whatever you want. And that's quite stifling here. You know, we just talked about how there's a bit of an identity in Liverpool, but if you break beyond that, like, you do get like, why are you wearing that for? So that was quite freeing. But no, I don't, hopefully, touch wood, didn't change who I was or what I did. I still loved trainers and Adidas and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Was just closer to it, and
being exposed to it,
and had some cash to buy it for the first time ever, you know.
Exciting, mate. You did a bit of work for Hypebeast.
I was Hypebeast, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that period and what kind of things were you writing about for them?
Sure. Hypebeast, when I was 18, 19, was like, you know, the gospel. It was kind of all of these brands that you could never get in the UK, and really interesting things happening in America and Asia. Super hype product in the truest sense of the word. So when I was in London, my girlfriend, who's now my wife, had moved to Hong Kong. I applied for a job as the editor in Hong Kong. Flew out there at Christmas to visit. Went and did an interview with a guy called Eugene Khan, who's been at Hypebeast since the very start, but he was also well into football. He'd moved to Hong Kong from Canada to play professionally. So we kind of just hit it off about football. I told him my backstory, that I wanted to move there, and he pretty much took pity on me and was like, okay, like, you're into like folk and like, you know, all of these very British brands.
Yeah.
It's not a great fit, but like, you seem to understand or whatever. I was into trainers, moved over there and tried to, like, this was pre-Hypebeast having a presence in the UK, so kind of tried to write about the things I loved, but very quickly sort of like realised I was probably there to learn about the stuff that I didn't love. You know, like basketball shoes and kind of American streetwear brands. Supreme was, you know, at a pretty high point. Brendan had just left Supreme and they're kind of going in a new direction. Palace was just kicking off. Noah, Brendan had gone to create Noah. All of these brands were kind of exploding. So Yeezy was massive for better or worse.
Did you have a pair of Yeezys?
I bought some fake ones in China. And I used to play five-a-side in them to annoy people because they'd be like, why are you... What? So it was really interesting in that sense because I'd been very, you know, cornered off here, and similar to everything we've spoken about before, it was, you know, as extravagant as it got was like Universal Works and Oipoloi and stuff like that. So it opened up a bit of a worldview on like, oh, there's people out there who don't dress and don't think like me and are into different things. So that was really useful. But I got to do lots of brilliant stuff as well. I interviewed lots of incredible people. A couple of features on kind of Stone Islands and all the stuff that I really loved. So it was a great opportunity. It was difficult because it was kind of a bit out of my depth.
Yeah.
But it was lots of fun as well. And like, contextualized everything I thought I just knew so well about clothes.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, you don't. There's a whole world out there.
There always is, man. Like, I'm finding that the more and more people I speak to from different backgrounds on this, I'm equally fascinated in all the elements as well, I think.
Yeah.
It's good to have a mix. Moving that forward then, I guess, did you learn a lot there when it came to, was it to Mundial after that? Or was there more jobs in between?
No, so we were doing Mundial while I was there. We'd already released one issue.
Yeah.
And I moved there, did an issue while I was out there for a year, and then moved back to go full time. So we'd kind of done it as a side project, released 2 issues, and then came back and decided it was going to be full time on issue 3.
Yeah. I mean, I've been subscribing to that magazine for a long time. Obviously, football's the focus of it, but you incorporate a lot of the kind of clothing parts into that as well, I guess, from the kind of casual side of things and all upcoming football brands. Is that a part of it that you took a lead on, or were there other members of the team that took care of that side of things?
Yeah, I think I probably took a lead on it. I think everyone was involved. I think everyone was super engaged in what was becoming like known as like football culture, which is like we just described it as everything apart from the 90 minutes and what was happening in the stands. And I do think you're right. I think all of it, at least initially, stemmed from terrace culture and how that was perceived in the UK. But we ended up doing a lot of different diverse stuff and some pretty out there fashion editorials for the sake of fashion editorials. And our very first one, we did a shoot with Opaloi, which was like a real nice moment for us because
been fans of it.
Yeah, we're like huge fans of what they'd created and that little world they created, and we wanted to mimic that in football. And I think that gave us when they were like, okay, yeah, you can come in, you can use some of our shorts. We were like, oh, okay, right, this is big. So it was always part of it. It became less part of it, I think, because everyone else started doing it.
Right.
And under no illusion that we invented putting clothes in a football magazine. There was lots of others doing it. But it became the narrative of like football culture, and brands started popping up and stuff. So we did a little bit less towards the end of my time there, but it was always something I was super passionate about. It was like my 2 sources of creativity were football and clothes. Yeah. So I loved working in both.
Were there any particular clothing magazines that played a big role in your appreciation of clothes growing up?
All of them really. I
devoured them all.
I loved magazines from when I was a kid. So I used to go and buy like GQ, Esquire, and it'd just be 90% watches that I wouldn't be able to afford, but there'd be something in there. There'd be something that struck. Like, okay, that's cool. I'll take that bit. And I was probably a little bit too young for like The Face and Loaded and things like that, but went back and bought back issues. And I think those 2 are probably in The Face and Loaded. They're probably the ones that kind of really created what we did. We stole pretty much wholesale from them, and a little bit from The End, which is Liverpool fanzine, which kind of is where Ins and Outs comes from, and and stuff like that. It was a bit of an amalgamation of all of that, but I'd buy any magazine that I could.
Yeah. There were things of beauty, man. I mean, I'm a couple of years older than you, so I kind of caught the tail end of The Face. I was buying it when they stopped, I think, and I just felt very transported from the shelves of Chorley WH Smith. I felt kind of transported to a world of fashion that I couldn't touch or couldn't see anywhere on telly. And everything from the design of the magazine just kind of stuck with me, I think. And I felt the power of clothes through magazines before almost clothes themselves, I think. Yeah,
for sure. Like with stuff that like I couldn't anywhere near afford, but it was like, okay, that's cool. How can I kind of mimic that or whatever? And I think I speak to a lot of people in this industry or people around these industries. There's always a magazine story. There's always like, I picked that up and Paul Newman was on it and I wanted to do this and this because of that. And maybe the next generation, it'll be like, I was on Twitter and saw something, so it'll be slightly different, but everyone I've ever spoken to, from yourself to the person whose studio we're in, have had magazines as part of their story.
Man. Beautiful rack from behind us. And shot. That would have been a nice background.
Top 3 selected.
Given your current line of work and your dedication to the clothing history of the sport, I'd like from you, if you can, a top 3 most iconic footy boots of all time, please.
Yeah. Okay. Adidas Predator Mania.
Okay.
Zidane, Gerrard, Del Piero. It's just black and red, so like still feels like an old boot, but like a beautiful, incredible boot, and it's no coincidence that they brought it back to great success.
My dad was a PE teacher maybe I shouldn't say the name of the school actually, but he used to nick boots out of the changing rooms, out the scrubber cupboard, and bring them back for me to play for Chorley St Greg's Sunday League team. And like they were always pretty shit boots because they're the ones that got lost, but he came back with a pair of red and black Preds when I was about 11 years old, and they made me feel $1 million.
Yeah, they still do. I think if you put a pair of Preds on now, you still feel like you can play 10%, 15% better. It's a design icon, and I feel like as long as they're not too heavy-handed with these re-releases, it'll continue. It's a Porsche 911, you know. It's like it'll always be there.
From a marketing standpoint as well, like I remember everything that came out around them, like the fact that they were in a cage in a shop, and all the kind of TV advertising that was around them felt very, very hyped at the time. Masterstroke of marketing,
for sure.
Yeah. What else makes the list?
Ronaldo's Nikes from World Cup '98, silver and blue.
All right.
Remember, like, desperate for a pair. Never knew anyone who had a pair. Bought a T-shirt with a picture of them on because that was like the closest I could get. And they were just, you know, we'd had black and white and started to experiment with colour, and then it was just like, here's the best player in the world. He's got silver and blue boots on, and he's gonna like destroy everyone in sight. I think it was very Nike. It was very like Nike coming back into football and being like, okay, we can play in this area now. There's a super exciting athlete. We can make our Jordan. But yeah, they're still, I don't know whether they've ever been re-released to any sort of great extent, but what a boot.
Yeah, man. Classics. And it is the sports people playing in these shoes that kind of create the myth as well. For sure. The things that he does in them boots give it its iconic nature. Yeah,
if you can get a product that like reflects the personality of the player, and then, you know, the third element is something insane happening in the moment.
Yeah, man. So that's what we're after, I guess, these big moments on the pitch to make them iconic. Wicked, man. What completes the top three?
Sakito's good there.
Yes, the future of
the most sustainable football boot of all time, as worn by Ola Aina, Nigerian captain Will Tuster-Kong, innumerable players. It's got me excited about them again. You know what I mean? I've been very, very fortunate for 10 plus years to be able to ask for a pair of boots and just get them and wear them midweek once, and maybe at the weekend a couple of times, and give them to someone and be like, next. And now I work for the brand. That's not possible, which is great. So I'm excited about these. I'm working hands-on with the product, and I'm kind of reminded of that privilege of like I'm talking to footballers every day. I'm working in football. If you'd have told the kid in that photo that you told me before that it'd like be on WhatsApp to people who've scored in the Premier League, he'd have been like, that's mental. So this working in this brand's reminded me that.
Beautiful, man. I think there's a real power in wearing something that you're directly kind of responsible for. This podcast called My Own Garms, it's from a Skepta, from a Wiley song with JME on the hook, where they talk about, I wear my own garments, I wear my own t-shirts with my thing on, and I'm like passionately proud of that. So I guess when you're playing in your own boots or seeing people playing your own boots, you get that kind of feeling of ownership.
Yeah, for sure. We were on a flight in America, and the maddest thing about being in the US is you can watch any Premier League game wherever you want, like more than here. In Nottingham Forest, we're on the like really small TVs in the back, and Ola Aina scored in this booth, but we couldn't figure out if he was wearing them because it was so pixelated. And like we took like a photo and we were like, has he got the boots on? Is that our first Premier League goal? And then we landed and we looked at it and it was like, okay, that's a huge moment. That's a huge moment for us, and it was really special. It's one that I'll remember forever, and hopefully the first of many. But you're right, like I'm definitely the worst player who plays in these these boots, but I'm still proud to.
Make you 10% better than you would have been without.
Exactly, yeah.
Nice, man.
Next time.
I know post Mundial, Mike, you did a lot of freelance stuff. Mita, you've done some writing for Seven Store and that. What is the future looking like for you? Are you full time with Sakito? Do you manage to kind of squeeze any other projects in on the side?
I am full time with Sakito. I was trying to squeeze other projects and do creative stuff, because that's just what I'm like.
Yeah.
But I think for the time being, this is such a big project that I'm going to kind of try and focus in on this. I'll always be interested in other bits and pieces, and I'm always quite nosy about what my friends are working on. But at the moment, I'm just on this. Yeah, this is a brand that we need to grow in the next 4 or 5 years, and it's a long-term project.
I mean, you've given us a kind of breakdown of some of the exciting things that are happening at the moment with it. Is there anything that you've kind of got planned or in the pipeline that you can share with us for Sakito?
Yeah, we had some super interesting meetings in America about an American exclusive colourway, which you'll hopefully see on pitch in MLS next season. And we launched this style of boot at AFCON with Will Troost-Ekong. He won Player of the Tournament. He's hopefully going to be in AFCON Team of the Year from wearing the boots. He was the highest scoring defender in AFCON history. So AFCON is next Christmas in Marrakesh, and we've got something pretty exciting planned for that with one of the Nigeria players alongside Will. So, yeah, a new style with player collaboration.
I know you'll do it properly, mate. Last question for you. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you care about clothes? Of all, like, is it Arrigo Sacchi? Of all the most important things, football is the most important. Okay,
I think that's a quote.
I can see how that can translate.
For the football stuff, for me, it's like, I've got family and I've got responsibilities, and then like the most unimportant things, football's there. So maybe it's like the second most unimportant thing in my life is clothes. I'm still like, I still care about them. I'm trying to buy less. I think someone who works for a sustainable brand, I try and do that. So
are you enjoying that?
I find it more challenging than I should. I think it should be easy. We should all be able to do it. But like at the start of the year, I made a big commitment to only buy secondhand, vintage, and then I go to Uniqlo and like I'll just get some socks, and then I'm coming out with a cardigan and whatever. So that it's difficult, but I do enjoy it, and you end up getting better stuff that lasts longer. So I'm trying to buy less. I'm trying to be more selective. I'm trying to dress my age a little bit more, which I find difficult because I'll always just like want to just wear a tracksuit and and football shirts.
As you edge closer to 40, which is where I'm at the moment, I feel the same thing, and it's good to throw in little, nods to your youth or to exciting new clothes. But I do think you feel more at home in maybe more muted tones or like more natural fabrics or something like that.
For sure. And I think people who are of our age and above who've got like a signature look and just wear sort of the same thing but tweaked, I'm always like, I want to be that guy.
It's cool, isn't it, man?
Like Paul Smith, you know what I mean? He always looks like Paul Smith.
Yeah.
Or Patrick Grant, who runs Community Clothing, always kind of looks the same, but there's a tweak or there's something interesting. So I want to try and do that at some point and not be pulled into the like, but I like that t-shirt of a brand I've never heard of and get drawn into it, because I think I don't want to wake up and be 50 and dressing like I still work at Hypebeast.
Beautiful, man. Thanks a million for doing it. Really appreciate your time and
pleasure.
Energy, and nice one.
Thanks so much, mate.
Cheers, dude.
So.
Yes, nice one, Dan. What a total ledge. Big thanks to him for being a guest, and to his pal Thomas Gorton for the backyard recording space. Much appreciated. And go and check out Sakito. They've got some absolute belter footy boots. Okay, that brings us to the end of Series 4. It's been a real pleasure, so let's do it again soon. I've got a trip up the road to see some Scottish pals planned, a few people to catch up with down in London, and who knows, maybe a My Own Garms European away day or two. If there's anyone you'd like to see on the podcast, then drop us a comment and let us know what you're saying. Big shout out to everyone that's watched, listened, supported, shared, contributed, or just been sound. I know there's a load of Ace channels out there, so it means a lot that you've chosen this one. We'll be back briefly in a few days with a fit pick breakdown, and hopefully a few months after that with another series. Catch you soon.
Oh, I get so much by strangers.